Call the spaceships to Davenport, prepare for Devanarchy, and interface with a couch in space. Welcome to Space Couch. Super happy as always to link up with you from out here in the cosmic void. Goodness gracious, so much going on today in the world of cosmic furniture in the celestial couchosphere. Want to get right into it. Got a little echo there, but that's okay. You know, we might have hit like a black hole where reality shifts and stuff like that. But you know, nothing is gonna shift with our stalwart sponsor this week. Like a rock, it's Tiger Squawk Records. You want to check out the brand new Fazaz City, from science fiction. Grasp Logic's Lost Soundtracks, so good. Virtual Terrorist, that is pummeling. That is some high grade stuff. The new synthwave release, Corrupted Memories from Industrial all the way to Norway. Stop the Goths again from science fiction. He's been on a roll. Uh, the three new singles from Bitman, they're amazing. Keonic re-released Vaulted Beast. The Gothsicles were supposed to play Cold Waves this year. Uh, and also released double feature with Chicago's own The Boundless. You can get all that stuff at tigersquawkrecords.bandcamp.com. It's just links to other things. It's not like one of those record label sites that, takes weird credit for like every artist on there and you can't find what you're looking for. But that's what's going on there. Thanks again to Tiger Squawk Records for sponsoring the show. Now, check this out. We have this artist is so prolific that we're beaming the signal out into space, and so by the time that I get it, he may have already released another album. So we'll see how that works. Uh, this is gonna be a good one. Episode 69, by the way, if you're into that horse shit. But but let's get right into it, ladies and gentlemen. Here he is. Please welcome Cathode Ray Tube. It's a gorilla attack. Oh, space apes and space unicorns and all that goings on. What's going on, sir?
Greetings to beings of all the planets. My name. Oh, sorry, we're live.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you for having me on the space couch.
Hey, no problem, no problem. It's a pleasure to have you on.
As someone said, space is the place.
Space. It is certainly a spot here in the vacuum of space. And speaking of vacuums, let's get into your own cathode ray tubes.
All right.
See how that happened? Boom. We have in short order two albums just came out by you. Songs for Swinging Sentinels, and not only that, Slow Your Vapor. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so we can work. I guess we'll just go in the order that we said. Uh, Swinging Sentinels is out on your own Condition Human Records. Tell us about this release. Do you have any sort of, is like a unifying theme? Anything we should know about it?
You know, it's one of those things. I was thinking something really pithy and intelligent to say, and I couldn't. So you're going to get off the top of my head. No, there is. I guess when I was putting that out, that came out in the midst of this pandemic situation we're in, and I think what I was thinking about was what I often think about: post-apocalyptic society.
You are among
Um,
friends.
and then and Rob I noticed Rob Galbraith from Robert Galbraith from Component just said there's two more coming out, two more albums soon.
Shout out to Snow Beast, number one in the chat room today.
Praise their dark cold. Yeah. Uh, I was thinking about something like that, about kind of post-apocalyptic stuff, and sort of the end of times, and that the lion on the cover there is the last Barbarossa lion, which was like a
Oh,
particular breed of lion. It was like one of the last photographs of it ever. And I often think about um, just the concept of sentinels and like solo um, beings or creatures or
mm,
consciousnesses looking at overlooking like a the world, kind of in the
hmm,
light that in the movie, in the book 2001,
yeah.
the monolith is also referred to as the sentinel.
Hmm.
And I it's a really interesting word to me, because it brings about like, well, sentinel solo is just sort of
Hmm.
a lone watching figure, but then sentinels, I started to think about others kind of like doing the same thing, just sort of watching these horrific changes
Hmm.
going through our world,
Oh,
and
wow.
just some sort of like weird soundtrack to that. And that's kind of what I came up with. I saw a lot of other artists who were releasing stuff. I got to be honest, I forget exactly when I released it. I know I released it
March.
fairly early in the midst of the pandemic, and
March
I
3.
saw a lot of other artists releasing stuff, and I was like, I kind of want to put something out that reflects sort of where I was at that moment.
Mm.
And those four songs, I think, really kind of caught that, this weird sort of feeling of being, you know, by yourself home, even though you're with your family, but at the
Hmm.
same time connected to the rest of the world, but at the same time still sort of very much alone and isolated.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was trying to
That's
hopefully come
awesome.
across something about something that intertwined those two things about us as humans, kind of connected, but at the same time very separate.
Very
Uh,
cool. I mean, the music, and we'll listen to a bit in a sec. It does have this great arching, weaving, liminal quality. Just it feels like it's trying to figure itself out. I absolutely love the description you just gave. And as long as he's here, let's get into something that just came out 6 seconds ago on Component, um, with our good friends. Rob and Snow Beast and obscure formats and everything. Slow Your Vapor. Does this pivot in any way from Songs for Swinging Sentinels, or might this be a variation on that prior theme?
it's interesting because I'd say it's a. I'm almost a little embarrassed speaking in these very kind of artistic terms, but hey, uh, you you didn't have me here to talk about my day job, so I guess that's what I'll do.
I mean, we can do dick
Uh,
jokes for the rest of the
Now
time if you want.
it's cool. No, slow your vapor. Rob and I had talked about putting some stuff out, and first off, I want to give big shout outs to Rob, because Rob, among other things, is responsible for me anything I put out in the last 6 years,
Really?
because he by putting my first EP out, Tribal Malfunctions, on Component, he got a wider audience of people hearing it,
Hmm.
and that allowed me to do so many other like amazing things and meet a lot of great people. And so though you may see my recordings, and there are many on different labels, I always consider Component my home. Um, but so Rob had asked me to put out something, and I was scrambling to kind of figure out what to put out, and we had this other project we've been talking about, which around my comic Bunny Head, and then I said I don't have that ready, but give me a second, let me find some songs,
Okay.
and um, I have a decent sized backlog. It's not like Prince, but there's a few things,
Wow, you have more.
rattling around in the can. And so I said, okay, here's this. And then I was really trying to think about, again, it's like another piece of the whole, I guess this whole my like artistic, whatever you call it, over
Mm.
or um, season of just the pandemic and everything around that. And I think when I composed the title and the artwork, I was just getting really furious about people not wearing masks.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I called it "Slow Your Vapor," and that's why there's a big fucking on there because I was like, wear your goddamn mask. So it's a little bit more of it's sort of a continuation of where I started with songs for swinging sentinels because that's almost like I don't want to say it's even a trilogy or it's an
Uh-huh.
opus or something, but it's definitely of a period, and so it's
Okay.
following on that. And with
Interesting.
the music, it's that same thing of just kind of navigating this just absolutely fucking weird territory,
Yeah,
the
that is
world.
yeah. I mean, I'm kind of watching it from out here in the void, but yeah, terra firma's got some shit going on right now.
Yeah.
Uh,
Lucky you being in space on that couch because I tell you right now here on terra firma, it sucks. There's weird
uh,
things. There's weird things that are going on that are really amazing at the same time,
okay, yeah, that is
but
true.
we're
There's some good
also in
stuff.
this tremendous um, shithole in a
uh,
lot of ways. Um,
Nico66 on Twitch wants me to slowly take off my shoes. No, but speaking of the good, let's do a little bit of music. This is selections, one each from the two releases we have just discussed. And we're back. I have switched from the Dr. Fate coffee mug to the Soy Calf coffee mug because we keep it nerdy AF up here on Space Couch. That was amazingly good stuff.
Thank you.
Um, I love it. Such a soundtrack for weirdness. The second of those two we heard off the illustrious component recordings. Um, I Rob, like the first show we really, one of the first shows we really played was with Snow Beasts in Providence. And that was just mind-blowingly amazing.
Yeah.
And I got to meet him at one of our mutual friends, Defley's, does these noise salons in his
Praise be unto him.
praise be unto him. Like, uh, when people now ask me like, "What's your favorite venue in Boston?" I go, "My friend's house." It's just these crazy noise like I'm back into gear. Like I'd gone so cyber goth VST for a long time and I still love that, but I'm back into like crunchy circuit bent speaking spells and stuff. It's great. Um,
Oh, glorious. Yeah,
so
definitely is a fantastic guy. I'm pissed that I didn't get to any of the salons before the pandemic, and I'm hoping after he'll resume them because then I
mhm.
definitely will be on those like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah. Rob says they are so much fun. He was the first person I ever saw play. He did like a minimal techno set. I'm like, "Hi, my name's
Yeah,
Brian. We're playing next week in Providence." I said it just like that too. The Now, Mr. Galbraith's, if I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, has a wonderful label called Component, but the Songs for Swinging Sentinels is out now with many other releases on Your Own Condition Human. Uh,
Hmm.
so you help out with the aforementioned Deathly's Void Star and Component. What led to the creation of your own platform, if you want to call it that?
Well, that's an excellent question. I think it was I've had I long ago, and it's how I met actually Deftly and kind of my foray into the Boston electronic scene. I started a label called CFOM, which was short for Chock full of Mercenaries.
I
Um,
love that.
yeah, my friend Jay, who I will also say Jay is like my Svengali in a way, because he's the guy who I put. There's two people who listen to all my music after I do. It's Jay and my wife, and basically 99% of my songs are that are put out on albums are because they said they were worth other people
Nice.
listening to. Hats off to them. But so I started CFOM a long time ago to put out primarily initially it was like my stuff, and this was the late '90s in Boston, and then through knowing getting to know a lot of people on the ancient Analog Heaven mailing list,
Yeah.
because that's what we had back then. We had mailing lists. Um, I got to know a lot of local guys, and there was I remember like someone floating around like there was a couple compilations that floated around through that, but I wanted to do something that was more local and more about Boston and more about just like the people that I was kind of meeting,
Mm.
because it was a slightly different thing. Because way back then, in 2000, you had like a lot of people who were very much known now, like Keith Fullerton Whitman,
Hmm.
is a a giant towering figure in experimental music, and then guys like Greg Davis, who runs Autumn Records and was has a record store up in Burlington, Vermont. The whole Tone Burst Collective, uh, the you young whippersnappers,
Hmm.
um, would would have to do a little googling to find all that. But there's a rich kind of history of that stuff, and so that was going on. And a few of us, I started talking to people. We were like, we should put out a compilation. And it was one of those things. It's like the stereotype. Little kids in any neighborhood. We'll start a
Yeah.
play and start a theater in the
Right.
garage. So there I am. Absolutely the wrong time to put out a compilation is when you have a 3-month-old child, as I did at that
Wow.
point. But why should that stop me? Um,
Right. It's not that big
so
of a commitment.
yeah, so we put out the compilation. Like two or three guys, like me, Chris Castiglione from
Yeah.
who is Uku Fambana, was another force of nature, um, and some other guys. I'm trying to remember who's still playing now. Christian Dahl. I know you're going to be speaking with him. Or wait, have you interviewed him yet? Or
What's his band?
American Electronic
Yeah, yeah,
Technology? Yeah.
he'll be coming in September.
Oh, okay, great. I love Christian. He's the shit. But so all these folks that I met through like the internet, I met Christian and his buddy Chris Mahalso, because they worked at Guitar Center.
Nice.
So we pulled together this compilation, put it out, and we called it Boston, not London, because we wanted to really show that there was like this electronic music stuff happening here, not just in the States, but not just like in New York
Hmm.
or LA. It was like
Right.
happening in Boston, of all places. Um, and I gotta say, I'm really amazed at the mileage it's still gotten to this day. Um, and uh, I'm the fact that we didn't make any money on it necessarily. I gave a lot of copies away.
Hmm.
Is I think far outstripped by how much kind of longevity that compilation has for what it's done for a lot of people. for just kind of exposing them to what was going on then, but also like the artists on the comp to go further. Not just me, but guys like Uku Fambana and Technology Scum, and even Chris Mahalso was still doing stuff as Demiplug Conspiracy. Asmodeus Spectre, Aaron Spectre was on there. Now he's out in Berlin doing stuff. So that was on CFOM, that label. What I soon realized was a couple things were happening. That was early 2000, 2001. One, I hated the business of music, but I loved making music and writing and stuff.
Like, what do you mean?
So I was a shitty label boss and and business manager. Three, C, MP3s were just coming out and digital file sharing was coming out. So launching a record label, a physical record label in the age where digital files were coming into their own was about as smart as opening a blacksmith's next to like a Ford dealership in the 20s.
Right.
But who knew? And who knew also that 20 years later, physical media would be coming back as much? So eventually, I'll get back to your initial question. No. So CFOM, where the comp came out, I folded that. I floated around copies of the comp and an album or two of mine that were on there. And then when I discovered Bandcamp, I started up Condition Human pretty much to put out my own stuff, but a lot of back catalog things. And then a few other just weird things that I knew really might be a hard sell for other labels in some ways.
Okay.
But I don't know. I always send stuff out, and I'm just, the friends I've made over the years, I'm like, hey, you think you could put this out? And they're like, maybe not right now. It's like, that's cool, And so, yeah, Condition Human exists as that kind of thing where I just have some space. I just put out a thing or two here and there on my own, in addition to the other releases I'm so greatly thankful for that other people want to put out too.
Super good. I just realized that your band logo is semi-obscured by my camera, and I don't know why that is. You're now just Cathode Ray.
That's I've been called worse.
We'll fix that in.
So that was pretty much it. I mean, that's pretty much why Condition Human. So it's been nice to have sort of it's like a catch-all for like my writing and the music stuff. And all that, the comics and everything. So
very cool. Yeah, that's funny. That the finger quotes sponsor that we had at the top was I did that to release my own stuff, and it kind of grew into its own
nice.
monster. But as a bucket for all the things. Thank you for mentioning that Boston, not London, had legs. It's mentioned in the bio of Condition Human, and when David Deftly Dotson was saying you definitely got to have Cathode Ray Tube on your show, brought up Boston, not London, and I've been here for about 2 years and change in my terrestrial base there on Earth in Boston, and so like I'm playing catch up and hearing like this legendary compilation, so I'll definitely be checking that out now that I have the origin story. Speaking of origin stories, let's go back a little bit further in time. This is the superhero. It's time and space curve when you're this far out in space, but
I understand.
So it's all gonna come around, but like it's how did you get into this whole electronic, industrial, IDM, if those are even the right words to use, world?
Oh, totally. Yeah, no, those are. That's a good question. I think I grew up in a suburban town outside of New York City.
Mm-hmm.
An odd ADD kid before they diagnosed ADD without the hyperactive component, so I was just considered lazy for a while. Until I was about 19, but I'd always been kind of interested in sort of more left field things, and not like sports and academia per se that like my family members or other kids in my school liked. and I'd always liked music too. I'd come from a fairly, like, my grandfather, in addition to being a principal and a teacher, played the piano and guitar. So I always had a lot of music growing up. I, you know, I credit everything to the shift towards electronic stuff, towards hearing. I got dragged by my parents to a dinner party at a friend of theirs' house in New York City. They lived in a like a brownstone in Chelsea. And it was one of those things when you're a kid, you're like 10, 12, you would rather have needles shoved in your fingernails
Right.
than go to this. So I got stuck there. The food sucked. I wasn't home. It didn't suck. I'm sure it was great, but I was 12. You
Right.
know,
Right.
not that Mrs. Taylor is listening, and if you are, Mrs. Taylor, God bless you. But like, I just remember. Oh, and my parents were like, "Well, there's another kid there, and
Right.
whatever his name is, he'll be there." I was like, "Okay, fine." And the kid had one of those big ass indestructible Fisher Price cassette players and a
Oh
bunch of different.
yeah.
And I remember sitting on the steps and he's like playing this stuff, and I'm like, ugh. And I don't remember what else he played, but I remember he pulled out a cassette, and it's not even the cassette, but it's like he pulled out a cassette,
Right.
and I was like, what is that? And he said, oh, it's this thing. My sister drew the art. I'm like, we put it in, and it was Kraftwerk's Computer World,
Yeah.
and I was like,
Right. Totally.
nothing else exists.
One
And
thousand
the kid was
percent.
like, yeah, it's really cool. And I was like, shut up, Timmy. Kraftwerk is on. Um, and it just blew my mind. And then I started to kind of like, and this is New York in like the late 70s, early 80s. And outside of New York, there's no real outlet, especially for like a 12-year-old for that stuff. I started to hear newer stuff from my brothers, like, New Wave, like the Police, Duran Duran, stuff like that. And then as I started to get older and would like venture to this really amazing record store in my hometown called Johnny's, which was hated by all the adults, but absolutely adored by the
Oh,
kids.
cool.
Johnny would get in all this great stuff, and it bears mentioning that one of Johnny's employees, yeah, a little bit later than this, was a guy named Moby.
Get the
Uh,
fuck out of here.
so we all knew Moby as like this little guy. He
What?
was like, yeah. He worked at Johnny's. He was really cool. He was really into cool music. He had this
Okay.
cool band, and then later on, he became, Moby.
The king of
Um,
1999.
yeah, but back then, like,
Just he
uh,
was a dude named Moby.
yeah, and he like told you what was cool stuff to get at the store, and you pick these albums up. So, and we had a really great radio station at that point, back then, called WLIR. There's a documentary on it, on Showtime, I think, about it, and just how it was one of the first stations to break a lot of English bands into American audiences, like Duran Duran in particular. They
Okay.
played the shit out of them early on. But from that combination of like what was really great, kind of like new wave radio coming in with a record store where like two people knew their shit,
Hmm.
I started to hear stuff beyond like conventional top 40 radio. So I started to get into New Order, Joy Division, Ministry, Cabaret Voltaire.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm gonna I don't know if you'll be able to. You can't see it probably. Anyway, I got a huge Cabaret Voltaire Microphonies poster um, in my studio here, because that album was another one of those like,
Right.
what do you call them, cornerstones
Yeah.
of my listening. And so it all kind of came together in this weird heady stuff. So I started to do my own music in 1984.
Wow.
Uh,
Okay.
my yes, I'm that old, and yet the witch's curse. Let's just say it's doing its job.
Hmm.
Anyway, um, so I I started making music in 1984 because I inherited this keyboard from my grandfather.
Hmm.
Just a kind of weird hybrid digital synth. Came out probably in the same era like the DX7, but it was more for the home market. and I loved the shit out of this thing. I still have it. It still works miraculously, and I played it endlessly. So I started doing that, making my own music. It was not that great. And then eventually, it was yeah, it was from listening to like a lot of Cabaret Voltaire and stuff that I started to like venture out away from the synth pop and new wave. So Cabaret Voltaire is like one of those like gateway drug bands.
Right.
And like the next thing I knew, I started to really get heavily into Skinny Puppy
Mm.
and Ministry and this what was it? It was the fall of '87 where I went to boarding school after high school in my town. And when I say boarding school, it wasn't like a fancy prep school. It was recovering from an issue with the '60s it had with
All right.
pots, whatnot. Anyway, but then I started to hear. So that year, like Mind the Perpetual Intercourse had come out. I think Vivisect 6 was just about to come out. And Ministry's Land of Rape and Honey.
Okay. Just iconic.
And those albums, and you're from Chicago, so it's like the Chicago stuff came out, and you're just like, fuck.
Yeah.
Like all that stuff's coming together. Now, in the background of that, there was for the most of the '80s, and I knew what hip hop was because when you're a little kid listening for new weird music and you're turning the dial on your radio, you're like looking for stuff, and way up at the high end of the band, you'd find WBLS, which was like the first station to really play hip hop.
This is still in New York.
Yeah, this is out of New York City. Yeah, I think BLS is still around. I don't remember, but you started to hear that, and that was like Sugar Hill Gang, Grandmaster Flash, and then as the '80s progressed, then you had, like I said, in '87, you had this great confluence of like the industrial stuff, and then Public Enemy and hip hop came out, and it was just crazy how they fucking meshed because, it was Moby who really at that point helped proselytize for us how important Public Enemy was. Because he's like, go to these shows, you're going to see the metalheads there, you're going to see the boys, and then you're going to see this group of people who are in between, who are like the punks and the industrial folks, and the goths are kind of riding in the middle of that, and it just kind of exploded from there. And I got heavily into industrial for a long time. Oddly enough, like a lot of guys, like the guys in OTEC were listening to similar stuff. I found I actually have gotten to talk to one or two of them. Well, there's only two of them. One or either of them at a various time about what they were listening to. It was the same thing: hip hop, industrial, electro, things like that.
Jason Hollis from Endif is in the chat room and says WBLS, which it would have definitely referred to as Wobbles. But
exactly. But yeah, so it was amazing, all this stuff coming together at that point. And then in the early '90s, I found personally, like for the music I was making, I really I dug the industrial stuff I was hearing and I was doing, but I started to feel like there was something else happening. I felt like I was treading old ground. That's when Moby again started to talk to us about this. There's this stuff coming out of Detroit or Chicago, he would say, and it's not house music and it's not industrial, but it's called techno. And we're like, what? And like Acid House was coming out too. And he's like, no, it's this great stuff. And then before you knew it, he became Moby.
Right.
And I started listening to more and more of that. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, this stuff really speaks to me in a really powerful way. So not negating the industrial stuff, because of course that a lot of folks who are doing that have moved into some techno and other stuff at the same time. But that was sort of the jumping ground that, and I think for me, industrial music, one of many things is, just the willingness to experiment and really go
Hmm.
away from conventional stuff, and just, blow people's minds and play loud music and
Hmm.
do weird shit. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of elements of that carried over into IDM and electronic stuff as well. So
Very
yeah,
cool.
that's how I became Cathode Ray Tube. And I will say one other thing too is
Mm.
like, I remember the exact moment when I helped Moby and another friend of ours, the painter Damien Loeb, move out of Connecticut where they were living to New York City. They were like, "You want to come in and help us? You can like crash on a couch.
Okay.
We'll go get margaritas and stuff after a while." And I'm like, "No, that's cool. I got to go home." Uh, I often wonder if, like, had I gone, would I have stayed, and would I have, you know, done similar things to them? I I can tell you, I
Wow.
wouldn't have met my wife, and I wouldn't have had my daughter. So
Okay.
I
All
don't,
right.
I don't say I wish I'd gotten in the back of that U-Haul, but it's
It
one of those what if scenarios. So that was really, yeah, that's like that's the cathode ray tube origin story.
very cool. I was not
I wish it
expecting
had
that.
more UFOs and
So, well,
you know
that's where the music comes in.
exactly.
No,
Exactly.
that's awesome. Uh, let's see. Well, speaking of otherworldly entities, let's get into this. Now that we've checked out the past, let's set that eye to the future. The
All right.
Bunnyhead comic book is
All right.
is is in the hopper. Um, Not only because, of course, Cathode Ray Tube would not be sated by simply doing the story and artwork for a comic book. Uh, you got to do a whole soundtrack to it. So let's break this on down into its, wait for it, component parts.
Boom.
The boom. Much like the bass on a CRT track, let's start with the comic book itself.
Sure.
What can we expect from this title?
Um, so among other things, I grew up as a kid reading comics, not like super in depth,
Mm.
uh, but like I actually, it's funny. I helped move some stuff out of my this summer camp my father just sold, and I have a tub full of the old comics that we had, going back to like
Nice.
like a moth-eaten copy of the first Spider-Man. Uh, and
Yeah.
so yeah, so I've always loved comics,
Nice.
and but read them kind of like peripherally,
Right.
and I went to college for writing, and I've written 5 books actually, a bunch of short stories, and I still write, um, not the comics, but I also do album reviews and stuff for like Igloo magazine, and
Oh wow.
I'm doing this long format series of um, these interviews with Jack Dangers of Meat Beat Manifesto,
Kick
which,
ass.
yeah, yeah, it's, if you can find them, they're pretty amazing. That uh, blew my mind, just how wonderful it's been to talk to Jack, but also, um, just the guy's been around for 40 years,
Hmm.
and uh, I know we're talking about me, but I'll talk about him for now. And we're not.
Sure.
We were supposed to be
Sure.
talking about comics, but
We can do it.
as
It's
you know,
space,
things in space,
baby.
can go in many different
You
ways
got
and
it.
stuff. So, um, I personally think Jack Dangers and Meet Me Manifesto is responsible for 3 distinct uh, musical genres.
Really?
The first being industrial dance, because when God O.D. came out, that first single, and I
Fuck yeah.
was at that point, there you go, working at, um, I was working at that record store, Johnny's, at that point. My friend Jay, and I, we put it on, and we're like, "What the fuck is this?
Hmm.
This is like, this is like these fat hip hop beats,
Mm.
but this weird electronic stuff, this screaming. It's like amazing."
Hmm.
And so I think he started that. Then he was, um, I think he was one of the first people to kind of start big beat,
Yeah.
which usually gets credited to what's his name, God, the Fatboy Slim. Um, I think he was very responsible for Big Beat, and I think also uh, um, true traditional like British dubstep, which is
Yeah.
not, which is like because he was doing stuff like Scorn and his albums like
I hadn't thought
Autonomy.
about it, but like even Storm the Studio or something like that, like it's in there.
Yes, yes, and that again, that's something that encompasses a whole shitload of genres. You know, uh, people like to always. I love Aphex Twin,
Yeah.
and here's the thing: Aphex Twin sampled Meat Beat Manifesto.
There you go. Boom.
So sorry, Rich, I love you, but got to give props where props are due. And so anyway, so yeah, so I write and I get to read these, get to do these articles about these interviews with Jack Dangers. So anyway, comics. Um,
Love it.
so I'd
I just
been
put down my Dr. Fate
uh,
mug, but yeah.
I've been wanting to write my own
Oh, I
comic
wore a
forever.
Justice League shirt. I just noticed that. Anyway, sorry,
I
sorry.
know
Comics.
it's awesome. It's perfect timing. Um, Kismet. I'd wanted to do comics forever, and I tried to write comics when I was much younger, but I hated it. I
Hmm.
hated the format, and like I got into. I went to there's a comic book store in Cambridge, a Million Year Picnic, and I went in there and I said to the guy there, I just read comics just for kicks. Like, what's a good thing to to
Hmm.
kind of like get me in? He's like, well, try this. He hands me the first trade paperback of Sandman and Hellboy, and that was it.
Gadooge.
Like after that, like those were my two main ones. And I read the Sandman one, and I don't know if it was that first one, but there was a couple where Neil Gaiman wrote out. He included his script for the comic.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, so that's it? You just write a script? Okay, cool. I got like one page, and then I think I tried to throw my entire computer out the window because it was so infuriating.
Hmm.
Uh,
How old are you at
and
this time?
so what?
How old are you at this time?
I was in my mid 20s.
Okay, so
Uh,
you're. I'm a genius and I can just crap out
yes,
magic and
exactly.
then oh
Right.
no wait, this takes effort and work.
Fucking DIY, man. Oh wait, this sucks. Yeah. So I bailed on it, but I'd always had the idea of like wanting to do a comic for a
Hmm.
long time. And then, weirdly enough, again, we're talking, interlocking strange patterns of the universe. I had a job where I was doing tech support, and I was drawing. I started drawing on Post-it notes to keep myself busy,
Right.
and it was a way for me to help focus during calls when I was done with all the customers' work. From that, I started to draw more. Then
Mm.
I started to buy actual nice pencils and paper,
Mm.
and started to draw more. And then I got, and so it got to the point where like I would just like every night, my wife and I'd be watching TV, and I'd just have uh, my pad in front of me, and
Mm.
my pens, and I'd be drawing. And um, one night I drew this weird robot figure and a bunch of robots standing sort of like in an army.
Okay.
And then I kind of looked at it. I was like, what is this? And I just showed it to my wife, and she's like, that, you got something there.
Okay.
I'm like, okay. And she's not, a big comics fan, but she knows good art when she sees it.
Hmm.
Um, so, so, um, so I started drawing it a little bit more, and then it developed, and then I started thinking about the story. And then against what one would consider all better advice at the ripe old age, not ripe old age, but the age, 48,
Hmm.
with very little experience or anything, I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to write a comic and see what happens.
Love it.
So I looked up how to do it online, like some things like that. Again, I ran like the basic ideas past my boy Jay,
Hmm.
and he was like, "This sucks. This doesn't." And I was like, "Well, I got nothing else to do," so I just started doing. I just started drawing, and I put out the first comic, and a bunny head. I like
Hmm.
to call it. The tagline is, um, America's premier amnesiac robot comic.
There you
Uh,
go.
and the basic premise is just this robot awakens on a planet, sort of has no knowledge of
Mm.
who it is, what it is, and joins another band of robots to um, learn the secrets of their creators while battling these invading cyborgs from space.
Love it. Sign me up.
Yeah. What episode of The Sopranos didn't do that? I know, but come on. So, so
Tale as old as time.
yeah, so I started doing that, and I put it out, and I would send it out, to friends, and people would see it. And Rob was like, "I really love Bunnyhead." And I was like, "Thank you, Rob of Component." I was like, "Thank you so much." I'm always just so happy when anybody who's not my parents and anybody I haven't paid actually likes the shit I'm doing. So
Totally.
he's like, "What would you think about putting out like a Bunnyhead album?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah,"
Yeah.
because it combined the music, combined the comic, but also the music. And earlier you described the clips you were playing as,
Mm-hmm.
soundtrack or something along that, or cinematic.
Mm-hmm.
And I love soundtracks,
Mm-hmm.
like album soundtracks. Movie soundtracks are like just amazingly influential on me. And the when I'm drawing, I'm listening to certain music,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I also hear in my head like certain music.
Mm.
So what I eventually came up was a story that fits in. Oh, and by the way, the whole story arc of Bunnyhead is planned out already in like 10 episodes,
Wow.
and 10 chapters. And here I got to give props to Michael Morton
Yeah.
of Prime League Records. Yeah, Mike is the shit. He's a great guy, an amazing, amazing artist. And he was another person who was very encouraging to me as a very new neophyte artist. He was like, this works, this doesn't, and he's been really, really immensely helpful with that. But you know, um, he and I started talking about, combining the comic and everything that, and how to figure out like where the story for the component comic fits in with the whole storyline, and I figured that out. So the book itself, the comic is called, and the album soundtrack is called "Seconds Too Late," which,
Okay.
spoiler alert, is a very old Cabaret Voltaire song,
Dig it.
um, but it fit perfectly for kind of the title, the comic, and also I wanted to do a little kind of shout out to them for because Rob from Component and I are both huge Cabaret Voltaire fans.
Love Cabaret
So
Voltaire.
it took me a year to draw it and figure out the story. The music I had pretty much ready. I hate to say it because I know Rob's watching, but I had the music ready a while ago.
Okay.
Actually, but then I had a catastrophic hard drive failure that killed a bunch of the masters for songs, so I had to write some new ones.
Very
So
cool.
it took a while, but I appreciate Rob's patience because I really just wanted to make something where the art was what I thought as good as the music, and the two worked together. So I'm hoping other folks feel that way. That should be out. I think we're aiming to have it out in a week or two.
Oh, no shit. Okay,
Rob,
and let's be semi-professional. We get that at component. Is it componentrecords.bandcamp.com?
componentrecords.bandcamp.com.
And
Yep.
that's the best place to get Bunnyhead, both the physical comic book, or is it digital?
Actually, no. This is special
Yeah.
because it is purely digital.
Okay.
We haven't talked about anything else yet, so it's purely digital. You get it all over at
Recordings.
componentrecordings.bandcamp.com. Other issues of Bunnyhead are available from my site, from conditionhuman.bandcamp.com, or the easy to remember URL cndhmn.com. That's Charlie, New Mexico. No, Charlie, New Mexico. cndhmn.com. I
There
can't
you
remember how to.
go.
There you go.
That Rob says 2 weeks at
There you
componentrecordings.bandcamp.com
go.
for the digital comic. Can we expect the soundtrack at the same time?
Yeah, they're both going to drop simultaneously, and I and because, as you may have guessed, I don't do small little things. I just can't. I'm
You are a
6.5 feet tall.
machine, man.
I'm not wired that way. It's all got to be kind of fucking epic.
Right.
Um, so uh, it was supposed to be a mini comic. Then the story, which is about like, in comics is like 48 pages.
Mhm.
The story blossomed into 16 pages, and then yeah, not very many. And then I included in it, so it's going to be like a PDF included with the album. I included a bunch of the sketchbook art
Mhm.
in the last 4 to 6 pages of kind of the concept art along the way, which is also something I really, really, really love. Um, seeing where the progression is. I With the story for this, I really like took some kind of creative leaps.
Mhm.
When people read it, they'll see. So
Okay.
far, like I said, my advisors have all said it works. It's beautiful. Um, so we shall see. So yeah, 2 weeks on component recordings.
We will
Uh,
check that out.
big,
We'll link out to that on Space Couch.
yeah,
Um, I want to jump to this real quick because it sounds cool. Um, uh, you are doing another soundtrack thing to 1964's Red Desert on Boston's own Void
yes,
Star. That's
yes.
amazing. Catch us up on that.
So, like I said, so soundtracks are a huge thing for me, and I realized now, like one of the reasons I started kind of my own label and stuff was because um, no one else was willing to put out a lot of stuff of mine
Hmm.
for whatever reason. I would say some of it may have been quality, some of it may have been them. Who knows? But um, I started. Uh, I've always wanted to do soundtrack work, and I've gotten to score like some little things here and there. But Red Desert by Michelangelo Antonioni is like one of his. I think it's like a trio of movies
Mhm.
that are some of his most famous. And if you haven't seen it, definitely like grab the Criterion DVD or see it. You can watch it online because visually it's just beautiful. Even though it's 1964, it's gorgeously filmed, but it's really sparse,
Mhm.
and it has a very minimal electronic soundtrack. One of the things Antonioni wanted to do was make kind of the industrial background of the
Oh.
industrial Italy in the 1960s, kind of the music of it. I saw it and I was like, this is amazing. And okay, that's cool. I get the whole natural sort of soundtrack, but I'm going to do my own because I felt like I felt like it was a great opportunity to take something that was really known, and some will call it blasphemy, and I'll accept that, but make it like um, just do like a different take. Like, for
Huh.
instance, like Jack Dangers has done his
Remixing
own
it. Yeah.
soundtrack for Forbidden Planet. He's
Oh,
performed
nice.
those a couple times, and Forbidden Planet itself had its own beautiful electronic, music concrete
Hmm.
soundtrack by oh my God, it's blasphemy. I can't remember their names, but the couple who did it, did it all
Hmm.
with like tapes and oscillators and shit. And then Jack did his own with all his gear. And so I was like, well, just for kicks, let's see what I can do in
Hmm.
Ableton Live,
Hmm.
um, and throw together a soundtrack. And my friend Jay, again, was like, "This is one of my favorite movies. You're fucking it up." And I was like, "I know, but if you love me, you'll really watch it." But like, I threw a couple pieces together on it and showed it to my wife, and she was like, "Oh my God, that actually works. That's kind of cool."
Nice.
So I was like, "All right." So I ended up doing the whole thing.
2 hours of music, or however long the movie is.
Yeah, it's like 90 minutes.
Damn.
It helps that I tend to write very long songs. Um, so it filled up a lot of time, but it was a great exercise for me to find what worked in it that didn't what worked that didn't overpower the film itself and didn't
Mm.
overpower like the actual the the natural soundtrack of it, like the machinery, and there's a lot of
Right.
fat shots and shit. Um, it's totally illegal that I've done this, by the way. So remember that when you go to Vimeo and search the link for Red Desert, and
Yes.
I'll send you the link and throw it up there
Awesome.
because
No
you
one
can
should
see
go
it
to
online. But
Vimeo.
yeah, so definitely was like, and the I put out an EP on his label, Abnormal Daddy,
Yeah, it's really
uh,
good.
around the turn of the year. And
And
thank
not
you.
just because there's squids on the cover.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, which and I did the art. I drew the
Oh,
artwork for that.
nice.
As yeah, yeah, yeah. That was fun. Um, so yeah, and I've been wanting to put out. We've been talking about me putting something out on the label for a long time,
Hmm.
and eventually I was like, I was trying to put together something for him that was in a way like me, kind of going back to my industrial roots, where I would actually kind of be singing more and
Oh,
like stuff like that. Yeah, that's still in the works. However,
very
in
cool.
the interim, I was like, here, put this EP out. And he's like, do you have anything else? We were talking about, like with your own label, like you schedule stuff out, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. And I said, okay, I got this really weird ass thing.
Hmm.
It's, and I explained to him, it's a soundtrack to a movie. It's illegal. Um, but I did it anyway. And he's like, great, I love it because,
Yeah, yeah, that's the definitely
it's
thing
not
in the
going to
world.
stop a guy like Deftly. Um, so yeah, so that we're hoping to. It's big enough that we have to release it in like 3 parts
That's
because
awesome.
it's 90 minutes worth of music, and I think definitely, and I agreed, it was nice to just kind of split them up in sections.
Hmm.
Um, I would say it's not like it's not like you can play it. It's not like playing Dark Side of the Moon while watching Wizard of Oz. Um, you don't if you don't just hit play on Bandcamp and
Right.
play the whole thing, and it won't sync up correctly. But it's nice to have the music kind of standalone separately. Um, and yeah, it's gonna be really cool.
When can
And
we
I'm
expect
still
that?
looking to do stuff like that. I'm dying to do like some more scoring stuff.
Oh man, how do you?
Uh, so that will be, hopefully this will lead to that in some way.
You must have time management down to a science if you're doing 18 things at once.
I kind of do.
Okay.
There's 2 reasons for that. One, um, like I said, growing up as an ADD kid and kind of hearing, well, he's kind of lazy and unmotivated and lacks
Mm,
potential. Problem was, nobody was noticing that at 14, all I wanted to talk about was synthesizers.
right.
Uh, and I don't, I'm not like, I'm not going to fault my parents for that or anything.
Mm,
But that was like clearly my thing, was like it wanted to be music, but it was not, take lessons and become like a pianist or a
mm,
jazz musician. It was like this music where everybody pretty much benefited from not having lessons and
right.
kind of doing their own fucking thing. Um, so so it came from that, and
Mm,
just kind of like doing a lot of stuff and a lot of music. I did work very hard to get down to a very specific workflow. I will say
mm,
the other thing here, um, that's very important, and it's very important to me, is that around the time, like I said, Rob and Deftly, like I say, are both pivotal for me having the music career that I have now and doing that, because it was Deftly who said, we're having a surprise birthday party for Chris Castiglione of Ukum
mm,
Fambana. Do you want to play? And I was like, yes.
mm.
Because I hadn't played in a while, and I really wanted to. Hadn't played live, and I really wanted to play some stuff out. And the party was at Rob's. That's where Rob and I officially met in the flesh. And then he put out my stuff, and we started talking more about that. But it was around that time where I really had to come to terms with the fact that I had significant anxiety and depression,
Mm.
and it almost destroyed my life,
Yeah.
down to nearly attempting suicide. Uh,
Damn.
and yeah, so it was heavy. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is the part where the lighting goes down and it gets a little moody, and I get in closer and
We
I whisper,
talk
no,
about it. It's all good.
but like yeah, no, but so it was very important for me, and I got my shit together. I got on the right meds. I got a great
Uh,
therapist, and all of a sudden I discovered, like, holy shit, my music got better because I'm on meds. And everybody, was like, oh, don't take meds. It's going to kill your creativity, man.
huh.
It's going to make you drone. And I'm like, no, that's not true. Because if a great example of the antithesis of that is, Vincent van Gogh did his best painting and his most notable paintings after he got proper mental health care,
Hmm.
and was in a sanatorium. So for me, it was the same thing. So I got my mental health in order and my music, and all that improved. The second thing was I was in a near fatal car accident two
Wow.
years ago. The accident was, yeah, it was July 9th, 2018. We got my daughter and I and the dog were in the car. We got sideswiped on the driver's side. We spun three times, and then on the third spin we rolled. We rolled three times, and the first roll I thought, oh my God, we're going to die. The second roll was, oh fuck, I have so much more left in the world, my life that I want to do. And the third roll was like, oh come on, just stop.
Get out.
So, yeah.
That is
So when we,
so scary.
it
Okay.
was, it was crazy. So once I knew we were all fine and everything, I realized that thought of like, oh my God, I have so much I have left to do in my life. Um, I realized I just couldn't put up with my own petty bullshit
Uh-huh.
or pretty much anything else. So I really kind of kicked it into overdrive, and that's
Wow.
where like Bunnyhead had started off. Actually, no, Bunnyhead was in the midst of production, but that's where it really kicked off.
Hmm.
But where it really was like, you never know, man. You just don't know if that your number is going to be up.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I was gonna
it
drop
just
it,
it solidified that for me.
right? Like you only, you only get so much time, and something like that
Yeah,
just snaps it into focus. That's
yeah,
pretty intense. I mean, like I'm in tech support too, and I was going to just make a crack about how like if the phone's ringing off the book, you really value it off the hook. You value that 5 minutes in between calls like it's gold. But
exactly. Yeah,
I uh,
yeah.
I do not have that sort of mental reset experience. But thank you for
It's
sharing that. That's
I'll say it's not the kind of thing I recommend, obviously,
well, right.
but I've heard from other people it does have a remarkable ability to focus you like that, and
Hmm.
it puts you in this really weird, unique club that's
Mm,
not exactly cool to be in,
right.
because you're like, oh hey, I almost died. Oh yeah, I had a fatal heart attack at 30, or I have a terminal. These people I've talked about with this, I have a
Yeah.
terminal brain tumor, and I could drop dead of a seizure at any second. That's why I'm constantly working.
Hmm.
And, for me, I mean, thank God I'm healthy and alive, but that really solidified for me that, like, I want to go out whenever that is, having left as big an indelible mark
Mm.
as I can, with hopefully a lot of cool shit that resonates with people, be it, my music, thank God, my writing, thank God, the comics, anything. So yeah, that's kind of why I do it all. In fact, my wife has come to the point saying recently, like, you don't really relax.
Yeah.
That's not true. We like watch TV. She's like, yeah, but you're sketching. You're always drawing. You're like drawing the new bunny
Oh,
head. I'm like, oh, right. So that's been my new thing, is learning to be this productive, but also relax,
I
which is a lot harder than it sounds.
I don't want to make it about me, but our significant others should compare notes.
Mm,
But the that I resonate with that so much. We are on this rogue flight path out here in space, and I gotta bring this flying couch back into the station. But let's go out
sure.
on this. Um, of like your go-to VSTs or hardware or whatever,
Mhm.
could you assign a member of the A team uh, to each one? Like for me, like maybe the circuit bend speak and spell that I was mentioning earlier is Murdoch,
Yeah,
because it's like crazy, but you can really rely on it.
right.
And
Um, Oh, that's a good question. I mean, in terms of VSTs, what's interesting is like, and you're never going to get a one straight answer with me. Sorry, Brian.
No, hey, long form.
With with VSTs, like it's my standbys for a long time have been pretty much anything audio damage did
Yeah.
and does. Amazing stuff, and they really know how to make plugins that can both make things really like beautiful, really wonderful, like the Quanta and Continua synths can do like really crazy stuff, but also really nice, sweet like pads. But they also have stuff that just exists solely to fuck shit up, and
Replicant and stuff.
I really appreciate that. One of my favorite bands ever growing up, but ever is Wall of Voodoo. And
Yeah.
even though everybody knows Mexican radio, something a lot of people probably don't know about them is they just like got some synths and started plugging them in, and they realized they had them plugged in wrong, but they made this amazing fucking noise, and that was like a go-to thing for me. It was let's just like dig into it. So yeah, so like the Audio Damage Suite is amazing. There's another company I want to plug. Sonic Charge, I think, has a suite of stuff. Synplant is their synth, and then Echo Bode is this really weird echo phaser device. That's really great stuff. But then also, I've been digging really small, like almost shareware, like donationware, $20 VSTs and plugins that are just incredible. And you have no idea like what something like that is going to do to your sound, and it can be like a staple, just being like a very simple, simple device like that.
No, that's a great call.
For hardware stuff, I mean, I've got a lot. I'm forcing myself. So I'm at my main studio, which is my office where I do like the art and stuff and music, and then in the master bedroom, my wife has very kindly allowed me to take over a desk there, which is like the mini studio. And I've called my studios Flow Control since like the late 90s. So Flow Control 8.3 is the main studio, and then Flow Control 8.3B is the little one. And up there, I have this very simple, purely hardware setup where I've got like my Electron Analog Rhythm drum machine synth monster, and then I'm dipping my toes into the scary ass world of modular synths.
Oh man,
I know, which is
enjoying
something
that
I've
cult.
avoided because with my ADD, I'm not one of those math whiz ADD guys. I'm one of those verbal people.
Okay.
And modular synthesis requires a much better understanding of sequential logic than I have, i.e., math. So I'm getting better at it. So yeah, so I got a Minibrute 2S, which is like the keyboardless version of the Minibrute 2 synth, but it's got a really nice, powerful patch bay in it, and it's deep. It's deceptively deep because you just think, oh, you're not going to get much more than like fart sounds and a cheap a lousy 303 imitation. But then it's like with anything, you start to watch videos of other people do stuff online, and it's just amazing the stuff you can get with it. So those are my big ones right now, and just like I'm really I got in a habit for a while of leaning so heavily on soft synths that I realized I started to bore myself. So I've been trying to work more pure like hardware stuff back into it. So hopefully hopefully you start to hear some more of that stuff coming in, where it's just like the pure hardware stuff. So yeah, so those are the.
Well, in my goofy A-team metaphor, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? All right.
Hit me.
Audio damage is the BA because it brings the pain,
Yep.
right? And the shareware stuff is Faceman because it's very precise and honed and does the one thing, but it does it
Yes.
really well. Flow Control I got as Hannibal because it's kind of the boss. It's in the main room, in the master bedroom. And then the Minibrute is Murdoch because it's very deep and multifaceted, but also pretty fucking crazy.
Yes.
Awesome.
Perfect. That's it. See? Oh, that's great.
I
That's
dig
great.
it.
I'm gonna
Well,
label everything in there now. This is
well,
Murdoch. This is
yes,
George Papard. Yeah.
right. And audio damage ain't getting on no plane. But
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
awesome. So we will circle back around to URLs. You want to check out Condition Human component recordings, uh, Voidstar, all on Bandcamp. Look for Bunnyhead in 2 weeks. You have so much cathode ray tube to sate you in that time. 2 weeks. Oh, I see. Oh my gosh, we have wheels within space wheels on this episode. This has been
Exactly.
episode 69. This is Brian for Tiger Squawk, for Space Couch, for Charles, for Cathode Ray Tube, saying, call the spaceships to Davenport, prepare for Divanarchy, interface with a couch in space. Space Ape! That's your out. These are the ending credits. That was an amazing episode. Thank you so much for your time. Uh, so, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that the bunny head stuff.
Awesome sauce.
That's gonna be great. Like, indie comics are really make my heart happy. I was happy to find
Oh,
Mice here in Boston, the Massachusetts Independent Comic
yes.
Expo, and
Oh,
because it,
I went to that. I wish I'd talk more about this, but I went to that 2 years ago, and I was so psyched to see that there were so many like LGBTQ
right,
authors and artists, but especially one room where I went with my boy Jay, and I'm like, this is wonderful. It's all trans kids.
hmm,
Um, my daughter's partner is a trans kid. And I was like, so goddamn, so wonderful to
yeah,
see all that. I'm hoping, if they do one in 2022,
right.
I'll be able to get in and get a spot there for Bunny Head. But
That
yeah,
would be awesome.
it's great. Yeah, yeah. The comics thing. I mean, geez, that's